Mid-Atlantic.
Mid-Atlantic.
Then they had the World Championships, which was Ray Stevens and Jimmy Snuka, and that.
I remember that.
Yeah, and we were the Atlantic chair. We didn't know the power of that television out of that place because we hadn't been around the country. And that was going on everywhere then, and as it went on,
Right.
we used to do the taping every week. We used to do one taping in Raleigh every week, and then that was the Mid-Atlantic tape. Then we used to do the worldwide tape out of Turner Studio every Saturday morning. Had to get there to Turner and that and do that. Remember the TBS used to be live at 9 o'clock?
Yeah.
Or 9:30.
6:05 to 8:05.
Right. Yeah, they used to have. They had 2 showings that day out of TBS. Early morning.
Right.
I think it was a half an hour delay on that. They had. We used to start taping at 8:30, and that'd be on at 9, and then 9 to 11 or something Saturday morning, and then they had the late. Then they had 6 to 8 or 6 to 8 and that. We didn't realize then the power of it and that. And they were giving us a push. There was a lot of guys in that territory at the time. They were doing 2 or 3 towns.
And while we had the belts, we gave our notice. So we'd only been there like 12, 16 weeks, but we weren't used to doing the mileage that they were doing. We'd come from Oregon and we'd done a lot of work, like as I said, 100 odd days in a row, then a day off, but not the mileage that they were doing there. And Luke didn't like the road for mileage and stuff. And we didn't, as he said, we didn't understand it. And we've made a couple of mistakes, statistics-wise, making the wrong move. That was one. We decided to go to Puerto Rico.
You should have stayed there, you think?
Yeah,
to keep the coverage, and the coverage was great. There was only 3 territories in the country that was getting the coverage. There was the Crockett's, there was the WWF and AWA. So if we didn't know you had to be in one of those powers.
One of the big ones.
Yeah, right.
And we got offered to go the other one too. Yeah. We got offered to go to AWA and that, to come up there and work there. And we got one of our friends was working in Puerto Rico 3 times a week and making as much money as we were there. But when we got to Puerto Rico, it was starting to slide. They weren't making that big money. The promoter was starting to cut the guys down on the money and that. So we went to Puerto Rico, which was one of our major mistakes in this business.
Yeah.
Because then we gave Crockett our notice. And Crockett, you heard of Jimmy Crockett, right?
Right.
He didn't like you giving the notice, and we suffered because Dusty used to come down to Puerto Rico and all the time, and that and say, "I'd like to get you back there." And Jimmy Crockett, I'd ring him up and that. And he said, never brought us in, and he made us suffer about 6 years before we got back in the NWA.
Wow. George Steele was the booker. He was very good to us. So they liked us there, but we just made the wrong mistake. That was awesome.
What was Puerto Rico like in Carlos Colon and stuff?
It was crazy. It was wild. It was crazy. And to be perfectly honest, we were too. So we didn't realize till a few years later that we'd made the wrong mistake. We didn't realize while we were in Puerto Rico we made a mistake, even though the checks weren't the same. But we were just fit in with the blood and the guts and the wild, and because that was the type of style that we sort of liked.
What were the crowds like?
The crowds were
riding.
wild. They were wild.
Big crowds. This is well before Brody was dead. These crowds, the weekends, ballparks. We just had I could go through dozens of matches there.
You had great barbed wire matches with the Invaders and stuff.
And when we set that barbed wire match up, the first one with the Invaders, and we set it up in a place called Ponce, which is one of the biggest places in Puerto Rico. And we laid out one Invader, the other one came out, we laid him out. We sat them back to back in the ring. We had barbed wire underneath the ring, and we wrapped it around them and tied together with barbed wire. They'd never seen it at this stage.
The blood was dripping out of them.
The crowd rioted. Luckily, there was no ringside, but they rioted. They threw the form, big rows of seats. So they got us back in the dressing room. They tried to set fire to the dressing room door. They threatened to knock it down. It was the first time I've seen the SWAT team come in with rubber bullets, and boy, was I so pleased to see them, because we wouldn't have got out of there with our life. There was probably at least a dozen times in Puerto Rico that we were lucky to get out of the ballpark or out of the arena with our life. In fact, I can remember one time coming out of this Ponce, not this night, but another night coming out, and we're outside, and the cops are all there to help us to go out, and the people told the cops, if you even try to stop us getting at them, you're going down too. The cops just left us, and luckily we had other people come and help. Otherwise, we were gone.
There's 200 of us. There's 10. There's 200. This is what the fans said. There's 200 of us. We had Hugo with us, and and he was explaining to 200 of us, and there's only 10 of you. and that blah blah blah. The cops and that they couldn't shoot. That was a bad one.
How'd you get out of it?
Well, we were very lucky. We had some of the boys came out at the time, and they had and just a few more to help, and otherwise we were gone, because you can't fight off that many. And there was nowhere to run or anything else. Another time was we were down for the same office.
Right.
We were down in Trinidad working against Trinidad champion. I forgot the guy's name. A big what was his name? Thomas, was it?
The black champion.
Yeah,
and the guy used
Mighty Eagle.
Mighty Eagle. You used to walk
Neither
around.
of them could work, believe me.
Right.
But the crowd really believed in them and loved them. It was in a ballpark, and they had given us a temporary shelter to get changed in the ballpark. And we had this. It wasn't a hot finish even, but it was a finish where we were supposed to do something, and they started to riot. So we had to. We got ourselves disqualified, but that still didn't count. We fought our way back to the this little enclosure. They knocked it down. Yeah,
it's a prefab made out of car cases. You know what cars come in?
Right.
Well, they knocked that down, and then luckily someone thought of they drove in a pickup truck right through the people. We rushed out. I hopped in the middle. Luke hopped on the outside. Just as we're going, they threw a brick. The brick went right through the window, hit me in the back of the head. We're in the hotel room for like 3 hours afterwards. We didn't think to go to the hospital in those days. You didn't go to the hospital. You had something wrong with you. You just patched it up.
Right.
And he's picking the glass out of my head while we're drinking beer in the hotel room, thinking, we're laughing about the scene. You don't realize till later how lucky you were to get out of some of these situations.
Yes.
But that's how wild they were.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, Trinidad. There's a lot of things on that South America. We worked in quite a few places. The Capital Sports used to go to South America too, so Panama and down in Venezuela and all places like that, and all those places, even the islands like St. Croix and St. Thomas. Those black people on those islands and that. They get excited and they come. You know what I mean?
Right.
Many times we work with a couple, and we've had to in the ring. We've had to change the finish and get them to fight us back to the dressing room. Get them to tell the people, leave them to us. We've gone to take a powder. We've got to take a powder. Put our brakes on. Go back to the ring. It says fight us back to the dressing room, and that because we wouldn't have got out of it.
Right. Right.
You can feel them. It's just that type of crowd. You can just go over that fractional limit and bang. So
same as Texas was like that too, mate. Many times, in Texas, the car would be brought into the arena, and someone had to drive our car the outskirts of the township and that, and the car would bring in, and many times it was a cop car, especially in Austin and that, right into the arena. We'd hop on that, and they'd take us out of the building.
And many times, if we have to sneak into a building.
Right.
Because if they saw us arrive in a car and saw where we parked, we'd go out and the car would be on full rims. Many times, and even in small towns, we arrived at our car to drive out on this, the four tires are slashed and the windows knocked out. No, it was horrible. I don't even want to think about those days anymore, believe me.